talk a little bit about the static part that you brought up. Last week I spoke with a gentleman. He's on a couple of board of directors, nonprofits back east. He was telling me that I guess for the last 8 years there's been a dual study being done, one by Stanford. The attendance for the arts has been going down for at least a good 10 years in all, the visual arts, performing arts. The one on the bottom is dance, and the one that's going down the least is Broadway musicals. Broadway musicals are a great example of sitting there watching, even more so than visiting a museum, because at least in a museum you're walking around and doing something, but with the Broadway plays you're just sitting there. So it's interesting to me that that's the one that's going down the slowest. And with those Broadway musicals, because I'm involved a little bit with San Francisco and San Jose, Saturday night and Thursday night are the two most popular nights. Those are the ones that Thursday sells out first for the week, Saturday night for the weekends. So to me, I hope we keep some of our static, because what I see is I see most of our weekend performances Friday and Saturday. And then next after that is maybe Saturday and Sunday, and then maybe Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Thursday night is the least of what I see going on every weekend. So it is nice when there are some Thursdays. Also, I'd like to see maybe some more afternoon performances. I've had a number of choreographers just this year alone, and we're barely at 2 months, who have told me either through email or talking saying, gosh, I'm so bummed out I'm not going to see David Herrera because I'm performing that weekend, or I can't go to La Meridian because I'm working that weekend. So I've heard that many times just in the last 2 months. So I'm hoping we can spread that Friday and Saturday out a little bit more, just so people can get in there. And the other thing is I do see some groups getting a little bit past. Liz Spain did a great piece at Theater Artaud, where they turned the theater into galleries and people walk through it. They then took it to the Marin Library. Very successful. My feeling is, I haven't had a chance to talk to her yet, but it sounded like they were able to get good funding through help through the library to put that on. And they hope to take it to more libraries. And it's at libraries because it's, as most of you know, her dance has come from literature. And this Saturday, I think her name is Christine Germain, is going to do dance at the Oakland Public Library, free event. And that was quite a struggle for her to do that. Most libraries wouldn't let her even practice there. She had to start off in bookstores, I think. So they finally got it set up. So I do see, and I think that's nice, because a couple of dancers have told me that because they're performing, they may now be able to get over there because this is something that's going on during the daytime and doesn't interfere. So I hope we get to keep some of this static model simply because I love it. But I also think we can expand it out more. Also, the gentleman was explaining to me about, I told him how wonderful the local dance community is in San Francisco. I discovered it 2 years ago, standing out in line here, where the first time I was here, the young lady in front of me turned around and said, well, who are you coming to see? Who's performing that you know? And I said, well, nobody. I'm just coming to see. And she said, well, thank you, you're our audience. Because most of our audience are families, friends, fellow performers. And I still hear that. One of the ladies who runs the Dance Mission Theater was telling me a couple weeks ago, we really depend on a lot of dancers in our performances because we rely on them to fill the audience. And this friend of mine was explaining to me that social capital. It's like a community who come together and build a community garden, a huge one. Same thing with the local dancing here. It's real social capital. I think that's a wonderful thing, and it's something I'm going to look more into, because he explained that although it's rich here, one of the places that has the least amount of social capital is the peninsula, the home of Silicon Valley, high tech. So I think that's very interesting that that is a real challenge down there. So I love local dance, so keep up some of that static.
Thank you. We're going to Joe over here next.
So I'm Joe Landini. I run a 49-seat theater here in Soma that specializes in residency programs. And I think one of the things that I'm noticing is that we're framing this as an either-or kind of conversation. And what I want to encourage people to think is that you've got two models, and I think they complement each other. One of the nice things about static programming is it's very pragmatic. It allows you to project into the future for your finances and things like that, which is why we're sort of roped into it to a large degree. But this last year, we started experimenting with non-traditional programming, and we helped found a community festival. And what I found was that ended up complementing our established programming because it increased our visibility. And so I just want to encourage people to think of it in terms of two models that actually can complement each other.
Great. In the back.
Microphone here. Hi, my name's Beth Fine, and I came because this is exactly what I think is important. And I think static, I go to lots of dance performances in theaters and counterpoles and all kinds of places, and I love that, and I think it's great. But about 7, 8 years ago, coming home from one with some friends, we were just talking about how much time you put in as an artist and a dancer, you know, working on your choreography, taking class, all kinds of things, and then how little time there is in the performance and how important that dance practice is as art. And I came up with this idea where I thought, what if we all just got up and danced and didn't wait for the theater opportunity? And I would say to dancers who are looking for a place to perform that that's an idea you can take any place. It's called Dance Anywhere. It's like in 3 weeks. I do it once a year. And everybody in the world is invited to get up and dance at the same time. It's on a Friday, even if you're in San Francisco. But if you're in Paris, it's 8. And we had it in 27 countries last year. And I think that, so I'd encourage you to do that and take that idea and go with it somewhere. You know, do it with us on March 18th, or do it yourself. Decide you're going to perform outside on the street or in a public plaza or whatever. I mean, what we do, we're very underfunded, so I can't address that part of it. A lot of it's volunteer. What we try to do is we promote anybody who does it and gives us a video. We'll edit their video for them, we put their photos up, we try to get press and that kind of thing. And I was going to also mention that what Mary did, and she got great press, and it was a fabulous performance, and I've seen her perform here and other places. She did it in her studio. She did it in the building she's in every day and used that space as an alternative. So I think one of the reasons I came tonight is I think that as artists, we have to make it happen. You can't wait for the opportunity for a theater or even to get a residency somewhere. That as long as you're an artist and you keep growing, you're creative, come up with something.
Thank you. Going to the front row.
This was waiting to hear that all night, Beth. Thank you for that. Boy, it's a beleaguered room, isn't it? Part of what I want to say is venues don't legitimize artists. Artists legitimize venues. Can we all have a round of applause for that, please? Artists legitimize venues. Let's shift the paradigm here. I'm hearing so much about the presenting model, the presenter, the static, the this, and everything is about engagement, and all these things are awesome, and everyone who spoke tonight is so on point. But what I hear also is this angst, also, and a lot of pain, and a lot of rejection, and a lot of frustration, and a lot of repression, and also there are these profound moments of celebration and success in terms of group action, and all these things are part of our daily lives. It's part of what we do. But I really want to get clear on this. The reason that an artist wants to be in a venue is because the other artists who were there were great, and they want to be in that crowd. They want to be legitimized by their practice and their form. And a venue which has stood long enough to withstand the onslaught of years and years and years of surviving, you know, one of which I run, and that's a real thing. And yes, we think very carefully about what those relationships are. But the reality of it is that it wouldn't be there. It wouldn't be there without the artist. So, if anything, I think the paradigm needs to shift profoundly. And in my work, I work site, I work in-house, I work regionally. My theater presents right now in California in 5 cities, not just in San Francisco. I present in 4 cities around the country. If an artist in my residency comes to me and says, I don't want to be in your theater, screw you, I want to be out in the field and I need this, I'm going to figure out how to do it. So I think it does boil down to who's in charge. And I think who's in charge is the creative process. Who's in charge is the vitality, the necessity of getting these messages out. That's who's in charge. And if we're not in our field servicing that, we're really going the wrong direction. So I think that's huge. I'd like to see, I love, Mary's most recent success too, because it really was about, I've presented Mary before, I've worked with her before, she's been in many theaters around town. You know what? She did something in her living room, essentially. And all of a sudden, that the primacy and clarity of that vision hit. And it was a huge success for you. And I think that's a message to carry forward. It's like, well, who are you waiting to legitimize you, for the love of God? Who are you waiting for? If you're waiting for me, there's a long list, and I've only got, 48 operating weeks. So how many people are in this room? I can't service everyone in this room in a year, let alone 5. So where does that come from? When you take it to the funding question, I think one thing I would like to put out there, since there are funders in the room, and we are all part of a funding community, whether you're a funder or not, you're part of a funding community. Again, funding communities can't exist without communities to fund. You are a stakeholder if you're part of that community, and your voice is absolutely welcome at the table. And finding ways to put it there is about you acting with agency on your own behalf. It is not just about, I got it, I didn't get it, they like me, they don't like me. You can always pick up the phone. I'm not allowed to not return an email, let alone a funder. So, where are your priorities and how might I have a conversation with you is something that I think we're all afraid to do. I know I was afraid to do it when I went into this field, but you have to. So part of it is saying, well, what I think is really missing in the field is that we're funding presenters to choose artists, which is backward. We should be funding artists to articulate themselves so that they're useful to presenters. So there's a major model shift there. And I see a lot of our community beginning to operate in this way and think that way. But it's a long-term haul, and it's not going to happen if we come from this perspective of, well, it's legitimized by statistics, it's legitimized by success with a large response, what have you. So I think, and I do feel those rubrics changing, and I think Hewlett, for example, is one of the real leaders in making us all think about that. They really have funded a lot of research, as has Irvine, to make sure that we're looking at what's really happening in our communities. So I think that's going on, but I love your word, trickle up. I love that phrase, it was fantastic, because it really made me feel like you're instigating in a beautiful way. And I think that's what we all need to think about. So, when I look at this, I try to take a view of it where I understand, like all of you, I'm a working artist in a leadership position in our community, but my take on the whole thing is you've got to figure out where you're located in yourself, and you've got to know where your vision is, and you've got to know who you want to be. And garnering that support is going to happen much more naturally if you're not fighting upstream against a frame that has nothing to do with you or how you're legitimized in your work. You've got to take that on yourself, and that agency will come to you like that once it's flowing in your veins and you're speaking your truth. So I encourage us all to think that way and maybe turn this around a little bit.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you so much for what you said. I really appreciate it as a working artist. I wanted to say one thing and then also present a question to the artists in the room. I present an event called Makeup Mutiny, and I curated, my intention is to have a very diverse bill of movement-based art, and then it morphs into a dance party. And the goal is really to present work that anybody from the street is going to go, so that anybody's going to, someone's going to come and they're going to see something they like. So that it's not always just, dance theater or just modern dance or just hip hop. But really the main purpose of the evening is that we're able to come together as a diverse audience, different education levels, different sort of socioeconomic backgrounds, and enjoy each other and hang out and talk to each other. I get so bored as a dancer choreographer, writing, taking class, like I want community. And so that's the point of it, right? It's really about community building, getting to talk to other people, getting to party with other people, play with other people, enjoy other people. And so, you know, as an artist, I find myself chasing something, which I think you sort of pointed to. And then there's a satisfaction I get out of making a fulfilled piece of art, or learning something, or taking a chance and seeing how that goes. But what I'm curious about is, if we're saying there's a problem with the current model, you know, I'm curious about what people are going for. Are people interested in money? Are people interested in other people validating them? Are people interested in being inspired by other people's work? Is it about community? Like, what are we actually going for? If we're saying there's a problem, what's really the goal for people in the room who are working artists?
I think actually but let's see. I think that might be a really great way to segue into the next iteration of this, which is, I think, this evening for me has, as you know, managed to problematize proscenium and 8 p.m. on the weekend, and you know, who is trapped? I think is getting to be an interesting question by this model. And Sam's question of, you know, well, what the hell are we actually trying to do here? What do we want from this activity that we all think that we need to do so much? So my suggestion is, can we take these questions and move into the wine and silly snacks part of it, and talk amongst ourselves in a more easy way. And thank you very much for being here, and please stay.
So thank you all.
I try to do this next. Yeah, because I go out and carve out my margins and try to get the in the same moment, so
Sorry, Patrick. Just one moment before we all break up, which is that this conversation has really just started. So I encourage you to continue it over drinks, but I also encourage you to continue it online. So we have people who are going to be, our intern Grace is going to be blogging about this on the Counterpulse website. And I really hope that you will go to the Counterpulse website and add your own comments and suggestions. You can listen to this, you can share the link of this conversation, but most importantly, you can share your voice. So I encourage you to continue the conversation online and also approach us. We are thinking about what future dance discourse topics should be, and we're open to your ideas. So thank you.